Hello, my name is Dean Lloyd. I am the co-owner of the AeroSpa of Taos with Karen Coyote, and I'm here today to introduce you to the aerobic hydrotherapy system. What you see here in the screen is a chamber where you have someone sitting in this chamber spraying themselves with ultra-pure sterilized water. This is a command center, and that is responsible for regulating the temperature of the water, mixing the oxygen. It is also regulating your heart. And what happens in this chamber is something very unique. You get an aerobic workout. But more than that, you are creating a hyperthermic effect, which is raising the core body temperature and washing it away with ultra-pure sterilized water. It's exceptional. I've been doing oxygen therapies in my practice for over 20 years, and I have never seen anything as powerful as this device here. We have the ability to take you in this unit, and if you are suffering from post-surgery, chronic pain, arthritis, insomnia, a plethora of different stress disorders, we'll be able to offer you help without causing stress. It's amazing. So what I'd like to do is introduce you to what oxygen therapy is. This book by Ed McCabe tells you of a variety of different techniques that you can get oxygen therapy and why it's effective. Number one is you can do oxygen therapy simply by having an oxygen tank and breathing oxygen. These are people that have emphysema or lung disorders. They can't get enough oxygen in their blood. Another way of doing it is through a hyperbaric chamber. This is done in hospitals for burn victims. Very often is the case where people that have low oxygen levels or hypoxia will go to the hospital to get a prescription for using oxygen. But what we're talking about is something different. We're talking about something that's called active oxygen. And it comes in a variety of forms, which I'll discuss in a little bit. Diseases. Cancer, above all other diseases, has countless secondary causes, but even for cancer, there is only one primary cause. Summarized in a few words, the prime cause of cancer is the replacement of the respiration of oxygen in normal body cells by fermentation of sugar. That's a profound statement. This is Dr. Warburg from Germany, and he won the Pulitzer Peace Prize in the 1950s for this very thing. Oxygen environments, aerobic environments, prevent the colonization of cancer cells. It's extraordinary that we have this amazing information and we're not utilizing it in this country. Dr. Warburg. Why take an aerobic spa? An effortless workout deeply purifies the skin and body, assists in the removal of toxins, relax both mind and body, weight reduction, and re-energize with better night's sleep. Now, if our body is starving for oxygen, we're not going to trigger the relaxation hormones or the hormones that make you feel good. You're going to trigger the opposite, or stress hormones. And believe us, we have seen way too much of that in our culture. Mental function benefits: improves mental alertness, reduces stress, improves sleep, and improves sense of well-being. I've had people in my therapy that have said to me, Dr. Dean, why am I not depressed? And I make it simple. I say to them, if your brain is not under stress because it has what it needs to burn up energy, oxygen burns up cells. The function is that it stimulates the antioxidants response. That antioxidants response stimulates the production of ATP, which gives you energy. So, mental function is very much sought after these days. I've had much easier time doing this therapy with getting people off of the SSRI drugs. It's very difficult to do that. It's very hard, and they have to do it very gradually. So this is a very positive therapy for that, and it probably is the most effective that we've found. The hydrothermal therapy benefits stimulates blood circulation. The releasing of muscle tightness reduces muscle joint pain. I've had a doctor that came to me from Castle Rock, and he's a bodybuilder, and he's a well-known doctor, and he speaks to these athletic types, and he gets a lot of recognition for his work, but he'd been injured for over a year. He couldn't get his arm above his head on the one side, and I didn't know this, and a friend of mine brought him down to try this out. Interestingly enough, he walks out of there, and he's raising his hand like this, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I haven't been able to do this in over a year. I've been injured, and this is the first time that I've been able to do this." What it does is stimulates microcirculation in the areas where you're injured. Very powerful effect. And incidentally, he said, "How do I get back here? How do I do more?" So that was one example. Metabolism benefits: decreases body fat, increases depths of breathing, supports healthy digestion, supports healthy immune system. Now, if your immune system is not eliminating properly, you're going to have a slow digestion, constipation. I can't tell you just so many difficulties, metabolic problems we have in this culture. Because of poor diet, what we are able to do is take a very necessary part of the elimination process and take the stress load off the body for that very reason. Increasing the oxygen levels will decrease your body's stress and accumulation of toxins as a fundamental. The cardiovascular benefits: supports vascular health, stimulates blood flow, improves blood pressure. Big problem in our country with the statin drugs and the issue with people deficiencies in things like magnesium, keeping blood pressure under control. This therapy, as I've seen people go through very tough times in trying to help their blood pressure problem with the drugs and getting off of them as a result of doing oxygen therapy. Very powerful for cardiovascular health. The aerobic spa features include 15-inch flat panel touchscreen control. That's what the command center is. Wireless heart rate monitor, and we can monitor your heart rate while you're in the therapy so that it doesn't get too hot. And we can even put in the age that will be automatically adjusted to the heart rate and the body temperature, so you don't go overboard. Okay? The heart rate charting during the spa session, user selectable conditioning level setting, user accessible water temperature up and down controls in the spa chamber, which means, of course, that if you're having it too hot, then you can lower it. If you're having it too low, then you can raise it. Sanitize cycle automatically cleans back between users. Aerobic spa generates steam for enhanced skin pore opening. Very important here is that our therapy is getting in the body through the skin. In other words, oxygen is not being fed through the veins and arteries, right? It's going in like an IM injection, intramuscular injection, or another procedure. We're doing this strictly through the skin, which is extraordinary. When your pores open, we're taking the water with this supersaturated oxygen, and it goes into the pores, and anything that comes out of it is washed away immediately. Any electrolytes, any toxins, and so The user-selectable spa cycle time, user-selectable water temperature, fresh water used for each bath cycle, water drain after each bath cycle. So we're using it once, and it's sterilized, purified, and treated with this super high concentration of oxygen and ozone, and you get this amazing effect, okay? This is a quick 3D video. It's about 2.5 minutes.
Water purification. The water is deionized and ultra-treated. Oxygen and a little ozone is infused, creating ultra-pure sterilized water. Blood flow. Oxygen enters the skin and toxins come out, increasing blood flow and sweat due to a rise in temperature. The heat varies, simulating an aerobic workout. Detoxification. Toxins are washed away through the skin's pores and are not reabsorbed but rinsed away. Hyperthermia effect. Core body temperature is raised to produce sweat. A simulated aerobic workout. An aerobic response is occurring as a result of an increase of core body temperature and oxygen saturation. Reduced stress load. Aerobic therapy enhances the body's response to stress. Results. The results include an increase of vitality due to a decrease in the toxic load, an increase in blood circulation, and a higher degree of function. For example, in the case of arthritic hands, a reduction in swelling. Life quality enhancement. Increase the quality of life by improving nutrition, hydration, and mental attitude.
From Malaysia. This is my very novice talent. I filmed one of my patients that had come from Malaysia. He allowed me to show this. It's just a simple expression. You'll see how people feel when they're in there, and this is only going to take a minute. But again, excuse my filmmaking. Okay, so here we are. Today is August 16th, and you come from what part of?
Malaysia.
She comes from Malaysia, and he is having for the first time aerobic therapy with his friends that all came from Malaysia. Tell us how you feel, and your friends, what do you want them to know?
I feel good.
That's a good start. Okay, more on this later. Okay. The reason I want to show you this is because people, when they have their stress go away, they realize they're happy. And I can talk about conditions all day, for many days. And it takes me hours to cover this, but I wanted to show the genuine response. When people start to feel their stress leaving them, energy comes in. When you get out of the spa, you feel like you've run 15, 20 miles because your body is at that point to where you peak out, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, you sweat, your toxins are going away, and the parasympathetic kicks in afterwards because you're so super saturated with oxygen. So there's a quick exchange of all of these functions that are eliminating the stress. So I don't want to go into this presentation about all the actions there, but I did want to touch on some of them. There are doctors doing this work. There's a lot of them, although they're not very well known in a lot of the circles that are doing allopathic medicine. Dr. Donsbach, Dr. Glenn Wilcox, who's here in New Mexico. Dr. Rowan, he's in California. He's Colorado. He has oxygen therapies that he does there, and we discussed this last fall about getting a unit out there. Dr. Beatty, Dr. Holmar, Dr. Wassar, and thousands more. I can go on and on about doctors doing this work. And the low oxygen levels I mentioned before about hypoxia, that means low oxygen levels. I wanted to describe it first so people understand what it means. A condition in which tissues, especially the blood, are deprived of adequate supply of oxygen. Reduced concentration of dissolved oxygen in aquatic environments. So what you're getting here is if you have too low levels of oxygen in the ocean, fish are going to die. Okay? If you have too low levels of oxygen in your lungs, in your body, you are going to die. You can't live very long. It's the 3-minute rule, right? If you can't breathe for 3 minutes, you die. It's very important that your oxygen levels stay at a high level for functioning of elimination, energy, proper sleep, and many other things. But most of our culture does not realize the effectiveness of using it as a therapy, and that's what I'm here for. This is oxygen forms, just this part of the science I wanted to just briefly describe. Latent oxygen, or O2, that's stable oxygen, 2. And we have the hydrogen peroxide, the superoxide atom. This hydroxyl radical is with a positive and a negative charge. And the reason this is so effective, we're finding, is that when it goes through water, there's a negative electron. When it's a radical, the electrons aren't paired. But what's happening is here, it's going through the water and it's creating this OH. And that is very, very potent, very reactive, very active. And you can't get that kind of effect from stable oxygen. You can't do that. Because it's not actively engaging the cell. So you get this kind of increase of fire. And when you do that, you burn up cells very quickly. And you activate all kinds of responses, including stimulating your own body's oxygen. Okay? And the hormones that are related to this. So, again, I don't want to get into the science, but right now all that needs to be understood is that you're stimulating at a very high rate the oxygen in your system for detoxification, energy, and so on. This is a little excerpt I wanted to play for you. Ed McCabe, the author of this book, Flood Your Body with Oxygen, was on the radio here just this week, and I thought I'd share a little clip from what he was talking about here. And see how good my lineup skills are here. Takes just a second. Takes a few seconds here. 26. I put it down there so I wouldn't forget what it is. Let's see where that is.
In parts of his formulas that was able to remove the viruses from the cells and then extinguish the viruses and extinguish the bacteria that were causing problems. And I'm going, wait a minute, what is this? And so I started looking more into it. Then I found another reference and another reference. People, again, no internet, but people that had found these truths and had developed them into their particular, this is the answer, I've got the answer over here. And what I did was I went out and I looked at all these different ways I found, and I found myself doing more and more research and finding out more and more about these things that are amazing. They're saying there's a cure for something when everyone knows this is incurable. And they're saying, no, we handle that all the time. And so what I finally discovered was what they all had in common was oxygen. Now, there's two things that happen when you put enough active oxygen. Now, I mean active oxygen. Not the oxygen we're breathing, but the more aggressive form of oxygen. O1, O3, O4, whatever it is, ozone, singlet oxygen. When you get that into the body does two things with it. Number one is it will start to flush out everything that doesn't belong in the body that's pollution. In other words, all the colorings, the additives, the flavorings, the pollution of the air that you breathed in, that you drank, last time you had a drink that had all sorts of chemicals in it. All these things are in the body, and they pile up and pile up and pile up. Because the body, they're not food, they're chemicals. And the body doesn't know what to do with chemicals. It only knows how to work with food, to do something with food. So the best defense the body has is that it covers it with mucus and it stuffs it somewhere. So the body will tend to not be able to remove these things. It just keeps stuffing them into the corners. Well, eventually the rug is 6 feet off the floor that you've been sweeping the dirt under, and the body's got this problem now. It's starting to shut down because it's full of this stuff. Well, what we discovered was that if you took enough oxygen, the very first thing the body would do with the oxygen was to oxidize or burn up. Excuse me. The very first thing the body would do is oxidize or burn up anything unnatural in the human body that's belonging there. That's what our body is set up to do. It's set up to do this. It's set up to handle anything that goes wrong by flushing it out. Just by simply flushing it out. It's the most simple, wonderful concept in the world. But what the body does is it will oxidize, burn up, or push out. Once you get enough oxygen, the body has enough energy to push out anything that doesn't belong in the body. So that's the very first thing it does. Now the second great truth.
All right, stay right there. Have the second.
That's on the Joyce O'Reilly show. There is another section here that's equally as important. I can show that's at 35, right there. There we go. Here back. Be so careful when you do this. There we go.
But I want to get to the importance of oxygen because it is so important that we get it into the body. And what was it you wanted to mention as we went to the break, Ed? Ed, are you there?
Hello?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. There's two things. If the body gets oxygen, the very first thing it will do with the oxygen is it will push out whatever doesn't belong in the body. It's a self-cleansing mechanism. It will either burn it up or push it out physically, push it out of the body. And the second thing, it's the thing that's not taught in the American medical schools because it probably put all the drug companies out of business. But the second thing is that all the bacteria, the viruses, the funguses, and the pathogens. Now think of all the diseases that have something to do with a bacteria or a virus, a fungus, a pathogen, a prion, all these scary new smaller and smaller things are talking about, these microbes, these bugs. What they all have in common, and what the doctors are not taught in medical school, and it would be so easy just to tell them all, but they're not told that they're all anaerobes. All the diseases that have to do with the infections, have to do with the chronic illnesses, have to do with the AIDS, the multiple sclerosis, the arthritis, even heart disease, all these things are related to it. They are all anaerobes. They can't live in oxygen. That's what anaerobe means. Anaerobe means it doesn't have the ability to live in oxygen. So I asked the question over and over, what was to happen if we were to take your body and flood your body with oxygen, thereby surrounding all the bacteria, the viruses, the fungus, the pathogens that are growing in you out the waste that you collected that the body has not been able to push out because it doesn't have enough oxygen, not able to oxidize and push out because you don't have enough oxygen. What would happen to all these bacteria, viruses, fungus, pathogens if you surrounded them with an active form of oxygen and left them surrounded with this active form of oxygen if they can't live in oxygen? You see, I don't have to make a claim. Everyone gets it. They go, duh, yeah, no wonder they don't tell the doctors. It's so simple. And folks, it's that simple. I have seen just about everything in the world either be gotten rid of or respond positively to the application of the correct oxygen therapies.
Okay. There are no panaceas. Nothing has been more effective that we have found than oxygen in treating fungal infections. As Ed had mentioned, if you flood the body with oxygen, hence the name of his book, you are changing the chemistry in your body. So you are not holding on to these viruses, these bacteria. They should have, instead of at Walgreens the flu shot, they should have oxygen therapies. I mean, they're just, it's such a very simple concept. But it's not, like he said, is not taught in the medical schools. Ozone and the politics of medicine. I wanted to mention a few highlights. I have the video here. It's a documentary. It was 1993, won a prize in 1994. So I have that available, but that isn't until after the presentation. But I did want to point out a few of the highlights in that particular documentary. It's about a half hour long if you want to watch it. Ozone therapy has been suppressed. Very important part of the therapy in Germany, but we don't hear about it here. It's done in places like Cuba, Russia, India. We're not doing it here. Doctors in Germany have been using ozone since the 1920s. Inexpensive therapy compared to drugs. Disinfecting and powerful effects on pain, and it is a safe therapy. This is a patented device, and we are doing it legally, and we have it downstairs for you to try and use to better your quality of life. Dr. Koch, William Koch, he was a doctor in the Detroit area, and to remove a virus from a host cell was believed that it cannot be removed. That was the belief. He developed a way to extinguish or remove the virus and bacteria from the cell using oxygen. This is so very incredibly important. If you are suffering from these conditions and you don't know this type of action, this type of oxygen treatment is available, what are you left with? You're left with allopathics, right? You're left with, for cancer, chemotherapy. Or you're left with immune system suppressing drugs, like in the case of MS, interferon. These oxygen methods are part of protocols, and like I said, in places like Germany, where people are living their life, where they have been even some terminal cases, they're living their life and they're working. They're living life, and this is the therapy they're doing. 20 years more. And it's, you can test it and test it and test it and test it, but we have enough of the testing. And if you ever experience what it's like to feel after a nice run, how your body is nice and deeply relaxed, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about getting the body to a place of being healed or healing because you're at rest. And you cannot heal when you're uptight and toxic. Okay? We have a tool that speeds up that process. My story. Why am I doing this? I had an accident at 12 years old, and I was injured, my head had fallen on the ice, and I literally had my life flash before me. And I had gone through a period of time later in the years after the incident where I was mute. And I could hear myself talking, but I couldn't talk. I had an extraordinary healing event that sped up my process. And I saw it happen. I experienced it. And I can now, through my experience, be able to share that healing with others. The Accutone technique was part of that journey of discovery of what had taken place in my healing. And I had made a connection with sound frequencies and the body's tissue and the levels at which I could target frequencies to speed up healing. One example of this is the Smithsonian came out with an article. It was in 2004, I believe it was at Waiting for a Patient, and they were using nanomicrophones to measure the blood frequency. And in 1999, I finished my book, published it, and it stated in there that the frequency of blood is C-sharp. In other words, it was an actual correlation frequency of C-sharp. And that C-sharp frequency was mentioned in the article. It was between C and C-sharp. They weren't really quite sure which one it was, but it was in that range. So anyway, I made a correlation directly to sound and the levels of tissue in the body and this amazing Chinese medical model. And I had also been introduced to Dr. Awa, which was my teacher in this therapy, who was an exceptional woman and was able to treat people with this oxygen therapy in a variety of different ways. Autohemo, which is when the blood is taken out, it's ozonated and it's put back into the body, through rectal insufflation, through auricular ozone, and other methods. But the important thing was she was doing things that were outside the box, and she was doing it in this country. She's from India, and we were challenged by the FDA, and we took it to the Supreme Court. And our patients had put up enough money to pay for one lobbyist, and they had more. They had money and they had more. So we ended up going to the Supreme Court and we lost our case. So she could no longer practice ozone in that state. It was Wisconsin. And unfortunately, she had to leave. But she went to India and practiced there. And good for her. Very good for all of us, because she was able to give us the motivation and information that led us to the next step, which is this aerobic hydrotherapy. Now, we are here at 522 Paseo del Pueblo Norte in Taos, New Mexico. We have a website. It's www.aerospaoftaos.com. And we look forward to hearing from you. It's easy to contact myself for questions. And my partner in this, Karen Coyote. So we look forward to hearing from you. And I'd like to ask if there are any questions for what we're offering. If you do have questions, please email me. So thank you.